Yep, he's telling the stories of old, apparently.
No, I need graham cracker.
Shut up! He's telling the stories of old.
I need graham cracker and chocolate right now. For the story time.
Wait, you guys like marshmallow ASMR?
Shut up!
When we filmed Chip ASMR in your car.
What?
Ah, nothing.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, here's my first story of old.
This should be a podcast.
Once,
I'm filming it.
there was a man about our age. Your
You
height.
really call him a man then?
Wait, open that. Your age. No, I mean not your age. Our age. Your height.
So he's not a man.
Shut up. I'm
He's a
asking you.
stupid young man.
It's about your height.
Like you.
And about Nathan's build. So just a tall version of Nathan. And he looked.
Oh, so he's fat.
And
I
he
was gonna
looked.
make that joke first.
And he looks a bit like Eli. You know, a white male.
acne.
So a white male.
So white male.
Oh, so autistic.
Very.
So acne.
This man.
They're a couple letters off.
One day he went into the woods
And killed a man.
because
I did that
Yeah.
too.
he was once told that the woods were a dangerous place. And he should not enter the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Now
was a
his
rebel.
friends dared him to go into these woods. And
he's a
being the
moron.
foolish young man that he was, he went into those woods.
Why do I feel like?
cool?
Why do I feel like you guys would do that to me?
Shut up.
Why do I feel like us three are being targeted?
Because all
You're standing right there in
all
front
of
of me,
us
so you don't want to
are
be targeted.
all of us are on the idiot scale.
Even Wyatt.
Especially
Yep.
you.
So,
Yes,
What
I
do you
went
mean
to
even Wyatt? Wyatt
I'm
is
at the bottom.
especially.
he went into these woods.
High on the gay scale.
Yeah, Wyatt, we already
He
figured
went
out.
into these woods.
Just
like the
remind
foolish
you
man that he
guys.
was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was told to spend the night. So of course.
That
he
one
did.
Sparkman just lit your nylon shorts on
So-
fire.
Okay, shut up. He's telling stories of old.
He
I'm sorry.
took himself a tent and some provisions for the night.
Oh, you
And
said
as he went
provisions.
into the night,
Where'd you get
as
the
the
tent?
night descended, what?
Where'd you get the tent?
From the
Done.
local
Brought it
store.
with him, dingus.
What store?
Hardware store. Shut up, actually.
Walmart?
Alright, let's
Yes.
about some
Okay.
questions.
Except there wasn't Walmart back in these ye old days.
Ooh.
No, not Walmart.
So it was more like ye old mart.
It was
Yield.
medieval Walmart.
Yield.
It was ye old mart.
This is how you cook a marshmallow.
And so he set up his tent, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, he began to hear some.
Mysterious. Wow, because that's never happened in a story before.
Shut up.
Make it original.
Outside of his tent. Now he knew this was not a couple of
And
things.
suddenly angels appeared, because that's what the music sounds like.
Nasty, shut up.
Because that's
Now he didn't know a couple things about the surrounding area. There was no trees.
okay.
So it couldn't have
I've been
been a
lighting this on
branch.
fire, but whenever it's on fire,
This was a clearing
I feel like a little
where
pop inside.
wildlife simply didn't come out. There was not enough grass, so it wasn't an animal. And it wasn't a person because there was no shadows. So, knowing all of this, being the intuitive young man that he was,
So in my smarts.
You must be sick.
he did not exit his tent.
You
in
should
the
have gone in
morning,
the woods in the first place.
in the morning, he woke up, quietly exited his tent, and checked around the area. There was no signs of anything being there that night. So he left, he came back to his friends, and told them of what had happened. They dared him to go back into the woods for a few hours the next night. At first, he didn't want to do it, but after they all promised him a good sum of money each, probably about half their life savings, being the poor peasants that they were, he agreed to go back in again because he would have about 7 peasant life savings, which quite a deal. Back in
Well, he had a lot of friends.
Yeah, that's
They
14
eat-
friends.
Yeah, like, wow.
I honestly
Guess
don't even
more than I do.
I don't even know that many people.
So, he goes into the woods,
Of course you don't, Isaiah.
and he does decide to go back into the clearing because that's where his friends dared him to
that's a
go.
bad idea.
And he wasn't about to back out of this dare that would make him so wealthy.
Finger. Where's my second?
Oh my gosh, the music just got dark.
Fire. Look at this finger.
You know what else just got
White
dark?
sin.
And so
Not quite, but okay.
he didn't have a tent
finger.
because he was only supposed to stay for about 2 hours. And that's when he heard another
Have you ever seen
slower
Parks and
this
For now,
time
probably eat the other half
than the
later.
first time,
Guys, we're ruining the
but
story.
louder than the first time as well. He looked around in a quick circle and he couldn't see anything. He couldn't feel anything. There wasn't even any more noise.
But he could taste it.
The woods had gone completely silent.
Stop it, you moron.
Moments after he had entered, there was birds, wolves, but Now there was nothing.
Whoa.
Was he in the same spot?
He was in the very same spot, that clearing. He could hear the trees, you know, the birds in the trees and the wolves in the fields. But there was nothing now. And so,
I'm scared
he
to
turned right back around and left those woods in a very, in a hurry. He did not want to stay there anymore. He told his friends about what happened once more, and they didn't believe him, and also he wasn't about to get paid either. So, he took them all with him that next time, the next night, and there
The
was
music just got darker.
no noise at all. There was nothing. The woods were vibrant with life. There was no tapping. There was nothing.
From the nothing.
His
Fire.
friend, no, stop. His friends all left him, you know, laughing because he had dragged them all out here for nothing. They left him standing alone, where he heard another, much louder and slower. This was just
Made him pee his pants.
about enough to make him sprint out of those woods. But he didn't. He wanted to know what this was.
Oh, question. What's this guy's name?
It isn't important to the story. This is a fable.
This isn't
His
this is
name
a
is
fable.
Wyatt.
Nothing has names.
Are you?
Yeah, it's a fable.
Okay, quick question.
Yes.
Are you coming up with this on the spot?
Yes. This is how I
This
do
is
things.
so impressive. It's because
This is
he's
so he's always been
Andrew.
good.
He can make up anything on the spot.
I know.
Yeah, did you not hear a story about Jimmy and Jeff last night?
I did not.
Oh yeah, yeah. How?
So,
He needs to be.
Yeah, that was when he left.
You were waiting for me.
so
Alright, you were. No, wait.
some
okay.
instinct within him told him he shouldn't leave. He should stay and figure out what this was. Now, this wasn't his normal back of the mind conscious thought. It sounded in his head a little bit different. It was deeper than normal. It talked slower. It had an accent that wasn't from anywhere. It was like it
Unknown.
had learned every language there was and never talked once. So,
That's good.
despite his better judgment, he stayed in those woods. He didn't move. He didn't check around. He simply stood there for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And on the 4th minute, he heard one final. It was much quieter than the last time, but still faster. And then, out of nowhere, it began to rapidly get faster and faster and louder, like this. So, once again, he tried to flee the woods, but something again within him told him not to leave. It wasn't as if he wanted to stay. Oh gosh.
Put that out.
It wasn't as if he wanted to stay, but it felt like he was being compelled to stay.
Bring the stick.
He stared forward into where his friends had gone. He could see them just beyond the tree line,
No.
as if this was the clearing and those trees over there. He could see them far in the distance,
His friends or what?
his friends. He tried to call out to them, but he couldn't seem to talk. He tried to move, he couldn't seem to move. Then he felt a cold presence behind him, and he turned around slowly. And what he saw, for the last few seconds he'd be alive, he would not forget.
For the last 3 seconds that he was
yeah.
alive.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna forget it, you know?
Makes
If
sense.
he had lived any longer, he wouldn't have. It would have probably driven him to the point of madness.
Only probably. This thing is not that scary then.
Well, I haven't finished my story yet.
Oh, shut up.
Stop
So
ruining
the
my
next
story.
day,
I'm immersed.
after his friends had left, they all came back because their friend had never come back from the woods.
Oh, they felt bad now.
Yeah, they felt a little bad. They
You guys would never do that if you
They
did
started
this
to-
Friend
me.
dies, only feels a little bad.
they started to once again within their own selves they felt something like maybe
They
he was
should
serious. So they went back and they went back to where they were the other night. They couldn't find him. So they walked around for a bit. And they went past the point where they hadn't gone before. Typically, they had entered through that way in the woods. So they went a little further this time. And what they saw past there was, first, a friend's body lying in a clearing, like, so if it was those woods, those trees, it was thicker than that, goes in for a few yards, and then there would be another clearing about the size of this area, or this, if this thing went in a full circle, it was that big. So the first thing I saw was the friend's body in the center, and it was very twisted and contorted, like, if he was still alive, he probably would have been able to, say, touch his...
Pee-pee.
His foot would have been able to touch his back. Would have been able to bend all the way around.
Like over the top?
I'm washing my
His
hands.
limbs looked
Just sort of
cold,
from
cracked,
Touching your pee-pee is
and
an
twisted.
unnatural thing to do.
And the second thing I saw
Can't do it unless
was
you're a contortionist.
many other bodies in a
Oh,
circle
let me test.
surrounding him in quite the same, if not worse, condition.
Is it abortion?
And the third and final thing they saw was the thing that their friend saw that night.
And it killed them too?
No, they lived, but
Oh, yay.
I don't believe
out of the, say, 7 friends who saw it, only one
Would live to tell the tale.
remained sane. More sane than the others. The other 6 were hospitalized and would remain in that hospital for the rest of their lives, constantly screaming, just a loud, high-pitched whine for the rest of their miserable lives. And the last one, he was almost the same, but occasionally he would stop screaming and he would talk. He would tell about dark shapes. He would talk about monsters with faces contorted and twisted, almost like a human's, but beyond recognizing. Don't really know where to go with this.
Just keep going. You have a pretty good story right
I know, it needs to end though. I'm trying to figure out how to get it to end.
I don't believe it. Until one day.
So that,
By saying the monster is behind you.
yeah, why don't you look behind you?
It is your shadow that follows you around.
That gives me an idea. Okay, got it, thanks. Okay, so, the things that this guy would say, well, he, at some point during his stay in the hospital, he never screamed again. And they decided to release him
now. Oh no.
because he seemed normal enough. He talked in broken sentences and like fragments and nothing that made sense, but he could. They took him out a couple times, and he could buy things. He could feed himself. He could clothe himself. He could do everything a normal human could. He just couldn't talk. And so, sooner or later, he went back to those woods to see, because he figured that in his state of mind, he couldn't get any worse, and that he could maybe see this thing for what it was. And so, he did. He went back to that clearing, and he saw a lone tent in the middle of that clearing, and he walked into that clearing, and he had carried some stones with him into those woods so that he could find his way back, like the bread trail, the crumbs, you know, Hansel and Gretel. And so he was walking, and he was putting down those stones, and they made
Infinity
a...
stones.
As he walked,
You keep making fun of the story.
as he placed them down, they made a tap, tap, tap. And he walked past this tent, and he heard someone inside of it. But he just kind of stood there. He couldn't.
Oh no, I think I know this kid.
He couldn't really. He couldn't bring himself to move further because this was the exact situation his friend had been in before he died. And he kind of stood there, and there was a light in this tent. But when he looked on the tent, he realized he didn't make a shadow. He didn't make a. There was no signifying he was there other than the rocks he had left. And so he stood there, and as the day continued to rise, he finally moved on to where his friends were. And he stood there all day, and then he was trying to figure out what was because there was nothing there when he got there. There wasn't the presence that he felt when he visited there the first time and lost his mind. So he finally leaves, and there's a person standing in the clearing, and he kind of just watches, and he dropped the stones that he was carrying with him, and made him know they're, because he was surprised to see another person there. And as he did, the person ran, and he kind of couldn't help but just watch them as they ran. And once again, he stood there all day until night came again, where one person came back with many of their friends. We saw him talking, and then all of them leave except one, where he approached them. He couldn't quite remember his way back home. He couldn't find the stones that he left the other couple nights ago. They might have been moved as the people ran away and they heard him drop the stones. And so he tried to go near them. He tried to get him to turn around. He was talking to them, but once again, he couldn't quite talk. He was in broken sentences. And when they turned around, he looked into their face, and it was his passed away friend's face. The same friend they had left in those woods all those nights ago. And he blacked out. And then the next thing he knew, he was standing in that field, in that clearing beyond those woods, surrounded by those dead bodies, with a large group of people looking at him. And when they looked at him, you could see the broken and shattered light that was behind their eyes as they all began to scream. This was when he realized he had caught himself in a loop, and he had become the thing that had broken his friends' minds. So, as he left this clearing, he knew that he could not return to that clearing, but he also knew that he couldn't let any one of those... Yes?
If he's the thing that messed him up, then what happened to the friend?
See, it's a cycle. There was one before him.
One friend dared to go into the woods.
There was one one person before him who had the same thing happen to him, and
It's
to
a
him,
science fair.
and to him, and to him.
Goes against him.
I don't like that.
Exactly. That's the point. And now, he knew he couldn't let any one of those children survive because they were part of what started this cycle. So he walked into town, and he didn't really seem to be a part of this ground anymore. He didn't feel the air. He didn't cast his shadow. He didn't leave footprints. As he went to that hospital where they were, he didn't know how, but as he walked past them, they just seemed to... They were not there anymore. He killed them. He wasn't sure how. It was all mindless. There was no blood. There was no scream. And when he was done, there was the last one left. The one who he knew would be like him and who would talk. And who would go into that clearing. But before he could get to him, he approached him. He got close. But when he got close, unlike the others, this one didn't die. He just started to talk. And he tried with all of his might to end this poor guy's life, but he simply could not. It was impossible. He was becoming less and less a part of this world. And he just became... What the heck was that? He just became a shadow. He faded into a shadow. And so when you hear something that goes tap in the night, or something that brushes against the door at night, or shadows that you see moving, that is one of them. You don't know where they came from, how it started, or why they're here, but they are. The merry magic ant.